Hello and welcome back. Today, as we talked about yesterday, we're going to discuss the top 5 things that people do who are prepping that they do wrong. In the research, I checked several other different sites who have posted different information about this. So I picked 5, just random ones, and I read through some of the other ones, and I picked those 5 that appeared the most often. Now the funny thing is there's some that basically did like top 20, which some of them were repeats of some of the other ones. So I've kind of consolidated this list. The top 3 are pretty solid. 5 out of 5 of the sites that I selected, and they were all selected at random, mentioned these as one of the top 5 or part of the top 5. There were 4 out of 5 who mentioned the 4th one. The 3rd one, or the 5th one rather, is it's actually 4 because 3 out of the 5 sites mentioned these. So instead of trying to pick one, I'm going to read them all. So again, thank you to our subscriber who asked the question. It was an excellent question, and I think this will probably be some further material that we will do some other videos on to go into a little more detail on each of these. Okay, so the first 3 are planning, security, and food. Okay, so planning, essentially, the reasons they picked planning was they had no plan, they had no personal disaster plan. So if a personal disaster, a lot of them are just preparing for like stuff hits the fan kind of scenarios instead of some kind of a natural disaster, flood, fire, wildfire, hurricane, tornado, whatever it is, depending on where you live. No rehearsal of the plan. They had no backup plans. Again, they planned for only one event or one season. So, for example, if you have to bug out, or if you have to evacuate your property and it's spring or summer, it's pretty easy because there's foliage, there's plant life that you can scavenger to survive on. But what if it's fall or winter when all of that stuff is already gone? So that's something to think about. We're going to get into these a little bit more in just a second. The other one was they prep too fast, i.e. there's still no plan. They just start buying a bunch of stuff, which tied into another one about buying gear or items without researching or without testing out before you needed it. So those are the top 3, or that's the top 1, planning. Security, operational security about being a prepper or your preps, what your plans are, where you're going to go. Those are all things that you need to keep in basically on a need-to-know basis. Food, selecting the wrong type of food, getting food that you're allergic to, which kind of ties into rotation or use because you don't use it, you don't know that you're allergic to it, and improper storage. So those are the top 3, planning, security, and food. The 4th one is skills. No practicing of the skills. Can't remember any. No focus on not learning the skills that you need, not knowing which skills that you need so that you can practice or so that you can plan to learn those skills. And then overestimating abilities. Sometimes we think that we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof when we're not really. So skills was the 4th one. So the 5th ones are survival library, not enough water, preps all in one location, and selecting an arsenal over food. Okay, so we're going to kind of discuss these a little bit more in detail, but not quite as much detail as we will later. I think what I will do is I will make these topics that in the following days that we will focus an entire video on each of these. Okay, so planning. Number one, planning anything that you do, even in the military. When we first get ready to go do an operation, first thing that we do is we create a plan. Okay, so the plan lays out who's going to do what, when, where, and why. Part of that plan is also understanding what the trigger is that's going to execute or cause that plan to be executed. Okay, so for a tornado, for example, pick an easy one. If there's a tornado warning issued, the sirens go off, you see a funnel cloud, or somebody calls and says, "Hey, I see a funnel cloud, and I'm 5 miles. It's the neighbor down the road." That's obviously a trigger that you need to execute your plan, whatever your plan is. Go to the basement, whatever. But having a plan is the first thing that you need to focus on. Okay, which also then ties into the prepping too fast, because people will become fearful. And that's why I'm not too fond of this word prepping. I would rather be ready than be prepped. So people become afraid. Something's bad's going to happen to me or my family, so I've got to go out and I've got to buy this, and this. I've seen this multiple times at some of the prepping expos that I've been to, where people are scared to death of something bad happening. So they go out, and the vendors will then tell them, you need this great widget or this bucket of chow or this gizmo, and it's going to save your life. It's going to put all your fears to rest, and you're going to be good to go. You're not. Okay, so unless you know what that item is, how to use it, what it's good for, even if it's food, is it going to sustain you, provide you the nutrients that you need? Most probably will, but there are some that probably won't. So you have to do some research, but you also need a plan. You need to plan what it is that you're going to be, that's keeping you up at night. What is your greatest fear? What is your greatest worry? And create a plan for that. Okay? Once you have the plan, then you decide what resources that you're going to need during that emergency, and then you see what items you have, and then you purchase those things that you don't have. Okay, basically what we call the delta, what's missing between what I need and what I have. Most folks, when it comes to food, unless you're going to the grocery store every day buying just enough to make one meal, most people are going to have at least 2 weeks worth of stuff in the pantry and the refrigerator and wherever else they store their food. So you're not going to be completely without food. Now, is it going to be the best thing that is it going to be what you want? Maybe, maybe not, but going out buying rice and beans and, you're not a fan of either one, eventually you're going to quit eating them. Okay. I personally don't like pinto beans. I'll eat them if I have to, but I think because when I was a kid, we were kind of poor, so we ate a lot of pinto beans, and that may be why. I can't tell you, but I know that when it comes to pinto beans, I'm not a fan. So if I go out and buy 100 pounds of pinto beans and expect that to be my survival food, probably not a good idea. Okay? I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. So that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see in my food storage. And I'm an old school Army guy, so I like Spam. So that's a good stuff. I know a lot of people don't. Security. Security is tied very closely with your plan and with everything else that you do. People who say they're preppers are looked at like they're some kind of, three-eyed toad or something. that were crazy, that were doomsdayers or doomsayers or some whatever else you want to call it. Again, I don't really call myself a prepper. I'm ready. So if something happens, I'll handle it. But being ready and being prepped, not necessarily the same thing. In my mind, being ready also means being emotionally and spiritually ready. If whatever happens, happens. So that's out of my control. God's got the big plan. Our little plans are just a piece of what He's got in store. So security, though, is also for your protection. If you're talking about having, 5 years worth of food for 6 people, and something really does go down, and the one that was, your neighbor next door that was not prepping, who said, yeah, you're an idiot, and all of a sudden something does happen and stuff does hit the fan, guess where they're going to come? They're going to come to your place, okay? So your food for 5 years for 6 people has just now been reduced to 2 days because you got 5,000 people there, okay? Storing food improperly is another big thing, because if you don't store the food correctly, it's not going to last, okay? That's a whole topic all by itself, but essentially you need to keep the air out of it. Dehydrated food is going to last longer than some of the other types of food, canned goods and stuff. In fact, there's a whole thing about how to manage your food as you're using it in a situation, okay? Which in reality, it should be used and then replaced as it's used day to day, so that when something happens, there's really no change in your pattern of behavior because you're already using that same food, okay? The other parts of food is storing the wrong kinds of food, okay? Storing canned or like candies and stuff, those are good to help augment some of the stuff, but that should not be your primary source. Neither should be like protein bars or other kinds of things such as those. Even like protein drinks. I know there's some folks that I've talked to that, they've got like, I don't know, buckets or however they buy it, of powdered drink mix that's basically a protein shake. Yeah, okay, that's probably something to augment your food, but it's not something that you want to live on. The fourth one, the skills. This is probably, even though it was kind of took fourth place in here, it's really kind of important as well. You can have everything that you can possibly, if you're a millionaire and you bought everything that you could possibly need as far as resources go, in regards to like food, water, shelter, etc. If you don't know how to use all this stuff that you've got, if you can't cook from scratch, if your idea of cooking is, popping in a pot pie or a TV dinner, you might want to learn how to cook. Okay, can you make flour? Gravies from flour and water and grease and whatever? Can you make biscuits from scratch? Can you bake stuff? These are all skills that people kind of overlook. Can you start a fire, without matches? Can you find water and purify water? All of these are different skills, and there's a whole litany of skills. We did a blog on our website that talks about do you have the skills, and do you have these skills? You should check it out, greatlivingsources.com. Go through the blog section tab at the top, and you can scroll through some of the blogs that we've posted on different things, but we did one specifically on skills, because learning these skills and understanding how to use the different pieces of equipment that you have is probably going to keep you more secure than any of the other three, even if you have no food, okay? Because if I have the skill to trap or hunt or fish, it doesn't matter if I have 10 years worth of food, because if really something serious does happen, like in Return to Life, the book that I wrote, where the world powers basically took each other out, and that kind of a scenario, that's kind of the end of the world as you know it, or the stuff hits the fan scenario, eventually you're going to run out of food. Even if you have 10 years, it's going to eventually run out. So you need to know how to be self-sustaining. You need to know how to grow your own food, how to raise your own food, how to hunt and capture your own food, how to make your own clothes. All of these things are kind of lost arts. Our, great grandparents, or even our grandparents, for the most part, they still had some of these skills and they still used them. But a lot of folks today don't plan or don't really know how to do some of these things. These are all skills that you need to learn. When you're doing your plan, you need to identify the resources that you need, i.e. how much food and water that you need, what kinds of tools and stuff. But you also need to understand what skills are going to be required. How to start a fire without a match, how to cook over an open fire, how to hunt, how to fish, how to build a shelter, how to make my own clothes from the materials I have around me. All of these different skills you need to identify based on the plan or the event that you were planning for. And then you need to really evaluate yourself and see how you stack up against these. And you need to rehearse them, rehearse the plan, but rehearse the skills. Every now and then make a coat or bedspread or whatever, and practice these skills, because the more you practice, the more ingrained that they're going to become. In the Army, we call it muscle memory. So the more that you rehearse your plan, the more you rehearse these skills, the better ingrained that they're going to be in you, so that even if you can't function 100%, you will still be able to automatically do those things that you need to do. Okay? So basically the fifth one that we were talking about, which again is 4 different ones, not having a survival library, that ties in with the skills. I don't know that anybody on the planet really knows how to do or can do everything. But if I have a manual that helps me to figure out how to do it step by step, then I can probably get through it and wing it. So again, that's something that you need to be thinking about. Soon we should be coming out with another book. It's basically it's going to be the first in a trilogy of basically survival how-to kinds of manuals. So you can be looking for that pretty soon. Not enough water. Now, I know that most of the national agencies say that you need 3 gallons of water per person per day. But in all honesty, that's a wing in the park, and that's assuming that you're going to get some outside assistance. Okay? So basically, they want you to have 3 days worth of food and about 3 days worth of water. And again, that's like 3 to 5 gallons per person per day. So water is something that we cannot do without. We can go without food a lot longer than we can water. And depending on the climate and where you live, you may not even be able to go as long as you think. So you need to have access to water. I don't know that you can store enough water forever because it would take a lot of water. In a typical natural disaster type of situation, you're probably 3 to 6 months is probably a good start. That'll probably get you through pretty much anything, and then within that time frame, most services and stuff should be back up. But in a end of the world as we know it type of scenario, or a stuff hits the fan scenario, those things will probably never come back. Okay, so that means that you're going to have to find a water source on your own, and then you're going to have to be able to purify that water so that you can utilize it. Okay, make it what we call an army potable. So you need to learn how to, like I said, be self-sustaining, be self-reliant, because I spent 25 years in the Army, but I don't trust the government as far as I can throw my house. So it's not to say that they're a criminal or whatever. It's just, they become overwhelmed too, and they're people too. So they're going to have their own issues that they're going to be dealing with in a crisis type of situation. So, don't depend on somebody bailing you out. Become self-reliant, self-sustaining. That ties back with the core of calm. Being balanced and being centered allows us to deal with whatever situation that we may find ourselves. Okay. Prep's all in one location. That's the same adage as all your eggs in one basket. Okay. If you have everything in one location and something now, assuming most people are going to shelter in place wherever their home residence is. But if you have to leave that residence because a hurricane is coming and it's fixed to blow it away, wildfire's coming, it's flooded, whatever the reason may be, you're still going to have to survive, even though all your stuff is in that location. So that's why it's best to have stuff in different locations that are safe. It may be at a relative's house. It may be a storage facility somewhere in another county, maybe even another state, depending on, if you live on the coast and a hurricane's coming, if your house is going to be hit, odds are that so will the storage facility. So you want to have it in a safer location that's not as likely to be impacted by the same emergency or disaster that's going to take out your house. Okay, so that's just common sense. Okay, so have your things stored somewhere else. Arsenal over food. I know, and I've talked to some friends of mine. They've seen this as well. A lot of folks out there are, buying guns and ammo and saying, well, we're going to take everything that we need. So the people who are prepping are also buying guns and ammo, and they're going to defend what's theirs. So the ones who are not prepping are not going to have anything. So what are you going to take from them? So that just is a bad concept. I highly recommend that if that's your idea of being prepared, you reevaluate your philosophy and start putting things away, because people are going to be looking for food and water, not bullets and guns. And unless you're going to start eating the people themselves, you're probably not going to find much out there. Okay. So those are basically the top 5-ish. And again, like I said, we'll probably address these in individual videos later. But, remember, the only one that you can really depend on is yourself, okay? Because you are the only one that really has your best interest at heart. So if you are out there looking to become ready, being ready, or prepared, whatever you want to call it, you need to first take care of yourself. Before you can help anyone else, you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. So create a plan, rehearse that plan, identify the skills that you need, the resources that you need, which include food and water. Don't store everything in one location. That's just another disaster waiting to happen. So, yeah. So, and then buy some books that you can stick in your library. Like, I have books on different edible plants. I mean, I know a few, but I know there's probably others that are available out there, that other plants that I can also utilize that I don't know about. So I have books on edible plants. I have books on, different things. I even have survival books. I have military survival books. I have, civilian type survival books. So, as ready as I am, I still try to keep these things. I still go out and I do. I go out and camp. To me, camping is an enjoyable time. Most often, I don't take a tent. When I was a kid, I grew up, I didn't have a tent. I think I was way up in my teens before we actually ever got a tent. And I don't think I ever really used one until I probably was in the Army in my mid-20s. So, go out and practice some of these things. Practice going, to the restroom outside, not in a, camp facility or a campground facility or whatever. Practice some of these different techniques, because these are things that are going to save your life later, okay, and will be important. So, again, if you have any comments, complaints, whatever, send us an email, drop us a note in the comments. If there's a topic that you would like to hear more about on this, in this series of videos, let us know. If you would like us to help you to create a plan or to get started on creating a plan, contact us and let us know. We'll be glad to help. Visit our website. Again, as I mentioned before, we have several blog posts already that are available. GreatLivingSources.com. The blog tab is about on the 5th or 6th tab on the right side of the top of the screen. My email address is guy@greatlivingsources.com. So, drop us a line, let us know what you think. Until then, stay safe, stay ready, and remember the core calm. Thank you.